Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. Supreme Court, Colorado. Web designer of faith.
Kill them on staff!
Gay couple with butthurt feelings.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Jack Phillips, anyone? I'm Jazz Berganzo, and this is What's Next.
What the hell's going on out here?
Jazz Berganzo here. What's next? Another episode for you guys. Hope you guys are doing well today on this Tuesday. Well, tell me if this doesn't sound familiar to you at all. You have the Supreme Court of the United States. You have a state of Colorado. You have a business owner that is Christian owned. And you have a gay couple with butthurt feelings. Where have you heard this before? It's makes me think of Jack Phillips, Christian baker. I'm not baking a cake. Gay butthurt feelings. I'm taking you to court. Jack says go for it. Goes to Supreme Court. Jack wins suit. Right? Vaguely familiar. Let's take a look. This comes out of Breitbart. Supreme Court hears the latest clash between free speech, gay marriage laws, this time in a web design case. Whether the government can force web designers to create websites celebrating gay marriage was the issue Tuesday at the Supreme Court in the latest clash between free speech rights on one hand, and once again, Colorado abusing its power, abusing its laws, forbidding alphabet discrimination on the other. Excuse me. Laurie Smith blends art and technology with create custom messages using words and graphics, began Kristen Wagner of the Alliance Defense Freedom, arguing for the First Amendment rights of a Christian web designer. She serves all people, deciding to create what's created based on the message, not who requested. But Colorado declares her speech a public accommodation and insists that she creates, you must comply and speak messages that violate her conscience. Justice Elena Kagan was very active in questioning throughout the 2.5-hour argument, asking early on, what is the speech required of your client that would violate the First Amendment? Quote, she believes that same-sex weddings contradict scripture, and she's announcing a concept of marriage that she believes to be false, Wagner explained. That is web designer Laurie Smith. Later, illustrating the point that context matters even when generic words and comic phrases, Wagner gave the example that, quote, my body, my choice means something different to an anti-vaxxer versus a pro-death mill proponent. Sharply questioning Colorado Solicitor General Eric Olson, Justice Neil Gorsuch told Olson regarding people like Smith, you can't change their religious belief. Gorsuch also debated with Colorado lawyer on a previous Supreme Court litigant, Colorado wedding cake baker, yes, the infamous Jack Phillips himself, saying that Colorado co-signed Phillips to attend what Gorsuch called a state-mandated re-education program on alphabet issues. Yes. Yeah, for people who forgot. Chief Justice John Roberts pressed U.S. Deputy Solicitor General Brian Fletcher for an example on when Supreme Court ever upheld a law that had this effect. In what other case have we upheld compelling speech? In other words, not simply restricting speech, but actually compelling an individual to engage in speech contrary to their beliefs. Fletcher was unable to make a case because, of course, he couldn't. Quote, I think here is difference of opinion whether turning down a same-sex couple simply on the purpose of a marriage announcement is a turn down based on status of message, Justice Amy Coney Barrett said during her turn addressing Fletcher, who was arguing in support of Colorado. After giving a hypothetical example of forcing a gay couple to design a website for evangelical or Catholic clubs support of traditional marriage, she reasoned that, quote, it seems to me that in my hypothetical that the status of the club is inextricably intertwined with the message they want to speak. There are certain rare contexts where status and conduct are inextricably intertwined, and I think that the court has rightly recognized, that a same-sex marriage is one of them, Fletcher replied. Referring to an earlier hypothetical example later in the argument, Gorsuch, who hails from Colorado, has ruled in favor of gay rights in a major previous case. Excuse me. Made the observation with implementing such policies that has effect on turning away those who have traditional views of marriage based on their religious beliefs, conservative Christians, for example. Justice Brett Kavanaugh appeared to hold a similar view, saying that during his turn with Fletcher, that he was trying to figure out, given what you say there, how would you say that this case does not involve the same thing as a writer being forced to write speeches that violate their most deeply held convictions? Cultural whims may shift, but compelling speech doctrine should not. Wagner began her rebuttal, and the argument drew to a close. Compelled speech crushes the speaker's conscience, and is the tool of the authoritarianism, which is why this court has never allowed it. One need not to agree with a particular ability to affirm that law-abiding people have a right to speak their conscience, including a controversial subject like marriage, she said. She concluded. Wow. Controversial and marriage. Never thought I heard you hear that. And the noble principle is rooted in the love thy neighbor, extending the same right to others as we want for ourselves. The right to be free from government coercion of speech is also foundational, and our self-government is to the free and fearless pursuit of truth. A decision is expected at the end of June. My thoughts. This is Jack Phillips all over again. For Colorado, again, in the eye of the storm, abusing its laws regarding the alphabet is ridiculous. It's asinine. It's stupid. It's moronic. But then again, this is Colorado, the doobie state. When you have a business, a web designer of faith, Laurie Smith, who basically says, listen, I will do designs for anyone, anywhere, anytime. But once you make it specific, especially regarding a situation that goes against my deeply held religious beliefs, a web design regarding gay this, gay that, doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to say no. I can do whatever else you want, but if you get specific on this, I cannot because of my faith. Well, of course, gay butthurt failings, no pun intended, happens. And once again, here comes another lawsuit, here comes another Supreme Court case, and yada, yada, yada. With Jack Phillips, they had the opportunity, Scotus at the time, and Gorsuch was on that case at that time, and of course voted in favor of Jack Phillips. But at the time, they had a chance to make it broad, not just an isolated case, because it wasn't an isolated case. You had situations in Washington State with the florist. You had another situation with a baker in Arizona. You had, of course, Jack Phillips. And, of course, now you have Laurie Smith. But with Jack Phillips, they had the opportunity not once but twice, because he did get sued 2 different times by the same by the same knuckleheads, and of course he won both cases. But they made it isolated. They didn't make it broad. Had they made it broad, this situation with Laurie Smith would not exist, because Colorado would have not exceeded federal law or Scotus's ruling on that situation regarding Jack Phillips. But no, they punted. And so now here we are again. So now what does Scotus do? Does Scotus do the right thing finally and say, hey, you know what? This is not an isolated issue. We cannot make this a one state's abuse, a constant abuse of its power in regards to a fringe minority. And I hate to say it, the alphabet community is a fringe minority. They represent less than 5% of the nation. But yet, when it comes to their media, the overwhelming media supports whatever they do. You must comply. It's no longer about acceptance, no longer about quote unquote tolerance. It's about you must comply. Because if you don't comply, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a phobic, you're this, that, and the other, what have you. So this case has made its way to the Supreme Court, and the arguments have been made, and a decision will be made in June. And more than likely, Laurie Smith, web designer of faith, will win this case. And with that being said, I'm Jasper Gonzo. This is What's Next. Want to see more just like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share, subscribe to it. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.